Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Environmental Social Justice. I am back with my friend Joy Langford. She is here today. Thank you for coming.
Finally.
I know you've been busy.
Yes, traveling, DOE hearings, all kinds of environmental stuff. The fight never stops, but
I am glad to have you back. And so today's special guest, we have Colin Mangham. Colin, you do a lot, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible in your introduction. You are the co-founder of Morpho Energy and the director of the Net Zero Accelerator at the USGBC-LA. Got it all out. Welcome to the show, Colin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So just so people know, the USGBC is the United States Green Building Council Los Angeles chapter. I try to avoid acronyms. But Colin, you started as a journalist. Could you talk about that transition of going from journalism and branding into what you do now?
Yeah, well, I could go way back. I could say I was born shovel ready. There's actually a picture of me with a shovel and dirt and diapers. So I've kind of been like angling toward the things I'm doing right now ever since. But I'll tell you about a pivot and all that's guided me as sort of a compass for this. But really, it was for me journalism and magazine publishing and really going out and finding out, being inquisitive, being curious, and taking information in, distilling into what I felt was important by my own kind of integrity and moral compass and value system, and then pumping it out and saying, all right, world, this is what's important about this person or this organization, or what have you. That line of inquiry and the skill sets I got from being in those trenches really has helped me, get into everything I do. And then the journalism went into advertising, Madison Avenue, Saatchi and others, where I was promoting things, but not always the things that I totally believed in, but I learned how to promote and how to market and how to brand. And I'll tell you and then back to you, one of my big clients when I was back in New York, early stages of advertising career for me, was the EPA. And one of the things we did was the high performance home. And so I had all these collateral materials about what made for a high performance home. That was decades ago, or at least a couple. Wow. And we're still trying to do those same things. So, there is a need for, I know we're going to talk about acceleration, but it's interesting to look back and say, wow, we're still preaching the same thing and not all that's really getting done. But the good thing is we're catching up and we're accelerating.
We talk about it a lot. There's a lot of talk and very little actual action. And hence, therefore, what you are doing with the accelerator. So that's actually a perfect time to segue into the work that you're doing. But you focus also on biomimicry. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of people know what that means.
Now, what is that?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny word. It doesn't just roll off the tongue, does it? And I think, but if you break it down into bio and mimicry and to mimic something and to mimic biology, that's really what it is. And so I can give you some quick examples. Velcro is a classic example. It may not be made out of the most sustainable material. I'm sure they're working on that. But Velcro is based upon, designed with the inspiration of burdock seeds and their seed pods. So if you've ever walked in the woods and gotten these things stuck to your socks or your dog, right?
Yeah.
Swiss engineer looked at it and said, hey, how does that work? And had the perspective. So this is important to what we'll talk about here. Like having a mindset and be kind of inquisitive and looking for solutions. Said, how does that work? And it's a hook and loop. And so emulated that, copied that, didn't harvest a bunch of burdock seeds, actually just emulated. So it's a copying of how nature does things. And also, so importantly in all that, it's a low energy strategy. Bush stays here, animal rubs up against it, carries seed over there, and bush just stays right there. So it's a really cool example. And I can give you a whole bunch more about shark-like technologies and hospital-acquired infections, how we're reducing that just by looking at how shark skin actually disallows things to grab onto it. Fantastic. And then I'll give you one more, just I think it's important to what we're talking about in the built environment, which is if, you're both in California, Southern California?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've seen the barrel cactus probably everywhere.
Yes.
These highly radial, I think the symmetry is beautiful, but the barrel cactus is an inspiration for the built environment. And I think I got a sheet of paper here. I'll fold this and I'll show you this isn't how I normally do. I would show a photo of it, but if I can do this, okay, so bear with me. This is like kindergarten version, but the barrel cactus has these pleats all around it. So just imagine a lot of these, right? And what happens is it's shading. So you see the shading coming off the light. And what happens if you put a facade on a building like this, then part of the facade is shading the building. And it's it could not be more simple in its technology. But it's the great thing about that is, number one, it's a built environment technology that just takes jutting out a piece of metal or wood to shade the building without having to run more HVAC. You know, it doesn't do the whole job, but it certainly does part of the job. But it's also adapted and evolved to the conditions we live in right here in Southern California. You know, everything about it, our microclimates, everything. And that's important to everything we do, with everything, all the work I do with Morpho Energy, with USGBC-LA. We're locally attuned. And that's a big part of what biomimicry does.
Now, I had read that the chainsaw is biomimicry after a beetle. Had you heard that one?
Could very well.
Yeah,
I haven't. Now I have to chase this down. This is a
it was a logger, and he just saw this beetle that could burrow right into the wood really easily, and basically copied the structure of the mandible, made the chainsaw. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's biomimicry for a long time.
Now I need to go chase that down. I mean, I know we have time left here, but I would normally be like, all right, let me go look at that.
It's like, I got to know now. No, it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So with the Net Zero Accelerator, you're helping people with their pilot programs and launching their ideas. Not many people know what an accelerator is, because if you could explain very basically what an accelerator does as a whole.
So we're meant to keep it simple, right? Accelerators speed things up, you know, and there's a lot of things that can slow down an early stage company. But before I go into that, just briefly, you know, we're not an incubator. It's not an incubator. Incubator is an earlier stage company. It might be, as we say, back of the napkin math on their finances. And it's an idea that's not really fully formed. And it might be just a team saying, hey, we want to do this thing. That's in an incubator. Now, there's been some overlap between incubators and accelerators. And we actually work with a lot of incubators that operate like accelerators. But what we do with the NZA, the Net Zero Accelerator, is actually just help remove those barriers that would slow down a company getting speed to market. And so a lot of that is in leveling them up a little bit, how they talk about themselves and how they target, you know, the opportunities, but also just helping them connect with the people that can help them move forward. And a lot of that is in pilot projects. And so I know we want to talk about that. You want to talk about that now? I can describe pilots for you.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to say, like, I'm looking for things around here. Like, okay, so I have this cup idea. You know, this isn't promoting Yeti, but so I'll cover up the logo. But I have this cup idea, and will it work? So I'm going to pilot it, and then I'll get data back and I'll refine it. And now it's ready for market, because I will have piloted it and realized what was not working with it. Now I made it better. What we do is we say we have this cup, and we go to any number of partners, pilot host partners, have buildings. We say, hey, if you'll put this in building number 1, validate it, test it out, get them up to see how it can work. Then maybe you want to put it in building 2, 3, 4, 5, and 100. And so the pilot is really a taste of a solution. Like, just try it out. It's bite-sized.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what we do with pilots. So the USGBC-LA is all about people, really. It's a community we saw that was an untapped resource with boots on the ground for us to say, hey, people, here's a great solution. Might be good for you. Just test it out. And that's a lot of how we actually look to scale adoption for all these different innovative technologies.
And acceleration is so important in all forms of technology. You never know where the next bright idea is coming from, but they need help such as yours to be able to propel them to the next level and actually get the name recognition and everything that comes along with it.
And networking, yeah. But also, I mean, the built environment has a huge carbon footprint. And that's what we need to work on, is reducing that gigantic carbon footprint through green architecture, through green construction, new materials. You know, concrete has a huge footprint as well. The timber market. But so you on your pilots, just rapidly helping people increase. I love the fact on your website for the Net Zero Accelerator. And if we could go through these, bridge the gap, build awareness, get the tech to the market.
Right.
Those are very important steps that most individuals would have a very hard time getting any kind of notoriety for that.
Totally agree. And I think if we can take them one by one, the bridging the gap, a lot of times the gap is between policy and technology. And a lot of these companies just do not have the visibility on the inner workings of how do you even navigate the terrain of code and policy, and how do you influence it when you've got everything you've got going on, just trying to keep your startup rolling forward, and afloat. And so what we do is we actually work with both sides of the equation, including government and community groups and advocacy groups, and certainly all the commercial players to say, let's make it easier for these technologies to be adopted. And that's what the bridge is just bring these things closer together. And the second thing is really just the building awareness. And that's where I most love what we do, is because I've got a branding and marketing and back to the journalism and like communicating things of value. And this is really no joke. It's not greenwashing, but I had a pivot. Part of my story was I was in life sciences. I was pre-med track. I was going to be a radiologist, and I was determined. I went through 2.5 years, and in my third OChem and a genetics class, I said, all right, I don't want to be a doctor. And that was a tough moment for me, by the way, because it's tough to say, I don't want to heal and the sick and the dying, but I had to say it out loud, because it's not that I'm afraid of blood. I'm giving you this may be TMI, but it's like, I just said it's not the path for me. And then I saw this thing called advertising, and this may sound bizarre, but I didn't see it as the commercial aspect of it. I saw it as, wait, I can use words and visuals to present someone something that may be of value to them. And so that's a lot of what we do, is present something of value in a certain way that is honed for the market that we're swimming in every single day. We're in so many conversations. And that's what I learned from the agency world. And maybe both of you have had taste of this in New York as well. I'm a generalist, a deep generalist. So I see a lot of stuff in the agency world. I would be working on fashion here, and then technology an hour later, and then pharmaceuticals 2 hours later. But you begin to see the interconnections of all that and how it all can kind of work.
Yeah.
And so what's great is we help these companies see the general landscape. But I have to say this. A lot of what we do with our community is say, hey, will you be a mentor? Will you be an advisor to these young growing companies? Oh, sure. I'll help those companies out. And that's fantastic. We couldn't do it, literally could not do this without them. But at the same time, I'm like, these companies also are hyper-focused on this thing that you may not even know about. You're certainly not seeing it at a granular level, out on the bleeding edge, literally like maxing their credit card, stressing their relationships, losing sleep. They're focused on solving that thing. They got something to teach us as well, especially because they're growth stage. These are sometimes serial entrepreneurs that have just hyper-focused on this stuff. So I love telling those stories. And that's a big part of it. It's you may both look at the list of companies that we have on the website, and you may not have heard of any of them really, or just a few, because it's just hard to really get amplification of who they are, to the people that need to hear about it. So it's a big part of what we do, and we have a great community for it. And we've got, 60,000 people on, not dollars, but I think it's 50,000 plus on our mailing list. I don't do that aspect. That's significant to push out and say, hey, look at this pilot. That's a lot of people, and it's because it's people that actually care about this stuff. Maybe I'll take a break here, because there was a third component, right?
Yes.
And the
get
question,
the tech to the market.
Yeah, get the tech to the market. Well, it certainly helps with both those things we just talked about, but it really is about focusing them on what's important to this market. And I'll tell you, just recently, one or both of you were at the Net Zero conference a couple weeks ago, right?
Yep, I was.
Yeah. So we presented, Ben Stapleton, executive director, and I presented one of the awards, and we've done this, I think, 3 or 4 years running at the gala. And the award was to a company in our current program called KitSwitch. And the great thing I think about them is not so much that they've got the green and the environmental stance, and it's fantastic, and they're reducing embodied carbon and all these things we talk about. But what I loved is that's not the first thing they say. First thing they say is speed to installation reduces labor hours and fatigue and cost. The quality of the construction, the way the aesthetics of it, the ROI, they saw for all those things, and they said, oh yeah, and by the way, we're reducing embodied carbon, we're increasing water efficiency and energy efficiency and all those things. So they wrap that blanket of green around a solution to be viable no matter what. And that's what I love about how we can communicate these solutions, because it makes sustainability a lot easier to sell if it totally makes sense in every way on paper.
We talk about finances a lot, and unless it makes you money or saves you money, those are the primary goals for most people that they'll focus on. And especially with what you're doing with the accelerator, the messaging is important, and your background in advertising is extremely important, because what we try to do here in ESG, we try to get the messaging out of all the tech that's out there, all the ideas, the creativity that's out there that most people aren't aware of because they're not running in those same circles and getting out to the general public. That is what needs to happen. You got a little sunspot.
Totally. Yeah, the sun's starting to come up. Is that a good thing? I'll go ahead and cut that out. There we go. So,
but I mean,
all right,
the projects that you guys, I mean, it's about the zero carbon, which we talk about a lot, the energy saving, which the built environment, that's such a huge energy gap. But I'm going to drag Joy in to talk about water, because not only in Southern California are we having droughts. I mean, Louisiana right now is facing brackish water in their drinking water because they have a drought. These are things that are worldwide issues, and we need to be smarter about what we do with our water.
Right. I mean, in water, water is a business as well, correct? It's
a commodity here.
It's a commodity, but it's definitely a business as well. So there comes a situation too when there's not enough pumping because people are conserving. You still have the hard fixed capital costs that go into the engineers, to the plant, to water treatment. Figuring out efficiencies and rate assessments and approximating how much water we're going to pump. It takes a whole group to make happen. So it gets confusing and kind of murky even in those type of environmental sciences as far as water, as to what supply and demand is and how we actually get the messaging out there so that people are actually using the right amount of water and being prudent with it, but yet at the same time making sure that there is not a water pumpage shortage. So
revenue,
God, it's a really, I mean, water. I mean, certainly as much as anyone, it's a difficult sell because people don't think about it. A little bit here, a little bit there, but it all adds up. And I was actually talking with a Danish company last week about water conservation. And a lot of what we do is work with international companies that kind of exporting thought leadership from this innovative place called LA, right? But it's interesting. We were talking about just even things like, it's certainly shorter showers, but where we sit is like, you try to convince me to take a shorter shower by saying, you can save this and carbon and climate emergency. But that may get me, or that may they've actually seen where signage in showers and bathrooms actually, where you had like save the environment, actually increased in some ways. People use the water more, like really. But really the simple message, that's what we're talking about here, is like, well, why would you take that a bit longer? Or I do my best thinking in the shower. Well, you could do your best thinking on a short walk in the sunshine, or why would you, for example, and you don't want people to be combative, like, well, I'll tell you why, but so there's a way to phrase it. Yeah, I'm not demonstrating this well as far as the languaging around it, but for example, people that brush their teeth and leave the water on while they're brushing their teeth, like, why would you do that? Well, yeah, why would I do it? I'll turn it off next time. Not climate crisis. That can help some of us, but just tell me, just simple behavior, might be useful. Okay, great.
Well, and we're raised in my household, you turned off the water and you turned off the lights to save money.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
I think yeah, well, it's like, we're not the power company here. I mean, I'm always flicking off lights, walking through. But, it's interesting too, because in my own household, and maybe this is a total non sequitur just because you prompted it for me, but I'm flicking off lights all the time. When I leave a room, I flick off the lights. And maybe that was just how I was raised, and maybe I was scolded or something. I don't know. But, others in my family just like having the warmth of the light and being able to see down a hallway. And so you kind of have to balance comfort. And that's a difficult thing. It feels more like home when it's lit up.
That's true. But I mean, there's more, electrically and energy efficient ways to have everything illuminated.
Yes.
Rather, that's getting better. I mean, I remember when the first LED lights came out, they weren't that great. They took a while to warm up. They're kind of dim. They're much better now, and they last freaking forever.
Yeah, well, right here is a Hue bulb, and I think we've got maybe 70 or 80 Hue bulbs from Philips in the house, and these last forever. They've got a million colors, and they're all automated, so they come on at certain times. We can shut them off easily. So I love the LEDs where they are now. It's incredible, really.
Yeah, no, the technology is definitely up there. And speaking of the technologies, like the cutting edge stuff that you probably get to see, is there anything really cool you can share with us that may not be proprietary?
Yeah. Well, so I mentioned kit switch. This is tough too, because I don't want to, it's like, which children will I not take to the park here in this conversation, because I want to mention them all. But I'll just tell you just where it probably differs day to day, but because I spend a lot of time in the technology space of even like zeros and ones and screens and gadgets, every now and then I just really like something that is really like hands-on, like kit switch, like materials, and make them better and shove them into here and then plumb this a certain way. I've just really been drawn lately to the things you can touch and feel. Yeah. And so one of the companies that comes to mind that it's also nature inspired as well in our current cohort is called Adept Materials. And it's a paint technology where there's layers of paint that actually can help. It's like directional vapor control. Like, so you can control how vapor moves through the surface as a function of the layers of paint, how they've orchestrated this and designed this. Weird. And then you're also getting into temperature and humidity control with paint, and we've got paint there. There's a company called Stokecoat, which is a biomimicry example. I just want to give you this real quick. So if you've ever seen lotus flowers and plants, right? They're generally sitting like in a pond, but they're just brilliantly clean. And so if you took a microscope, you look at it, you see on those leaves, it's just what they call a microtopography, just a super kind of interesting surface. And what that does is it's spiked in little like mountain ranges and things on that leaf if you really, really look close. And that allows drops of water to roll, paint or dew to roll across it and remove debris from it. And now there's a paint technology you can put on a building when it rains. It cleans the building.
Oh, I need that.
We all need that.
Self-cleaning walls. God, yes. Yeah. That is really, I just love some of the creativity that's out there that, someone would think about that. It's amazing.
Well, again, there's some people that are hyper focused. Sometimes they're academics, and we can help them with tech transfer. I mean, the academics aren't necessarily entrepreneurs, right? In most cases, they're not. Biologists are not necessarily entrepreneurs. In most cases, they're not. But that's another gap that we bridge, is help people who are maybe not comfortable in this zone or not equipped for this zone, called commercialization of a solution. That's where we can help them to advance their products.
Most creatives are probably not comfortable in the business aspect, especially, this hardcore scientists or engineers. I mean, they're generally, unless you're crazy geologists like me, where we're just wackadoodle. But most scientists and engineers, they're very introverted. They basically keep to themselves. So having to go out and network and market your product and get funding, that's hard for them. That is very, very difficult.
It's really hard to be kind of that, I guess, that gray area, that black box of like not knowing, and as a creative, been trained in it. I'm like, I love the not knowing, because I know something's good's going to come out on the other side. But I spoke to a bunch of people over at NASA on biomimicry like 5 years ago, whenever it was, longer. And they were really not having it, because they were like, we're engineers and we need, inputs and outputs, and it needs to be very clear as to what happens in there. And this feels like tree hugging. But then, we talked to them about a few different things, and they were like, wait, I get it. So I could actually slough off ice off a probe moving through space just by how we change the surface area of that. And I'm like, yes, just like the desert beetle does in Namibia,
There you go.
And even like this, I mean, I have these props around, but the Morpho butterfly, if you're familiar, ever been to like Costa Rica, South America, but that iridescent blue, and this is what my solar energy company is named for. And by the way, I should mention that because this isn't me just saying, hey, startups, here's what you should do. And I read this in a book. I've got blood on the floor. I got scar tissue. I've been in a whole bunch of startups. I work with a whole bunch of startups, invested in startups. And so it's coming from a place of having experienced it. And this is one of them too. But I mentioned this because this is a biomimetic thing that iridescence is back to, how do we do this? So it's structural color, that super, super tiny surface area reflects and refracts light, refracting meaning bending and reflecting, of course, back to you. In a way that presents that color. This isn't pigment. If it were in the dark, there would be no color at all there. Not like this shirt that has pigment in it, right? But this is where engineers can start to see, oh, okay, so you're using physics to create color. Okay, I get it. And now we're seeing, different, automobiles that can use this kind of technology. Apple watches, they have a technology that they bought from Qualcomm that I don't think they're actually using yet, but it can take ambient light from around me and actually reduce the energy load on this watch by how it might reflect back colors in a certain way. So it's interesting. I mean, it takes time, it takes money, it takes focus, but it's really, really fun and interesting.
That's really, I mean, I'd heard about peacock feathers being similar to that as the amorphous butterfly. And thank you for explaining that, because in my brain, I'm like, what do you mean there's no pigment? Of course there's pigment. So explaining that, bending and refracting the light, thank you. You just explained something to me.
I hope I did it well. There's probably people watching like, no, that's not exactly how that works, Colin. But like, this is my understanding. I think it's pretty close. So it's good enough.
Every little bit helps. And, just explaining it as simply as possible, because that's the whole thing, going back to the messaging and getting communication out there. We all live in this world of science and engineering and sustainability and climate. We talk in our own language, but the general public isn't being engaged because we spend too much time speaking in this stupid jargon. So explaining it simply is very, very important. We want everybody to understand. We want it to be all inclusive.
This is where what I still pull from the branding toolbox. It's kind of like we used to say, I work with like Bell Labs Innovations and Lucid Technologies and Bristol Myers Squibb and some big companies that a whole bunch of scientists are saying this is what it should be. And I used to say, we got to round the edges, the sharp edges of that, for the consumer. And we really need to distill it down. And that's what some of my training helps me to do, say, let's make it bite-sized,
Bite-sized, exactly. Because people are not going to read the whole dissertation. They need small bits of information. And that's what's primarily important.
They like to know that big stack of dissertations over there, but they don't want to read it. They're like, oh, good, you validated it scientifically. Fantastic. But just tell me what it is, right?
There's a reason Cliff Notes did so well.
I leaned on myself.
I used it. Hey, got me through many a book. Joy, I'll give you final thoughts since I've been dominating this, and I do apologize.
No. Thanks, Colin, for showing up and actually having the energy to, help companies grow in the net zero space and try to help accelerate companies. It's really important for people to understand what backbone and support is out there when they come up with great environmental ideas that are going to help us with all aspects of climate change. So thanks so much for all that you do.
Thank you both, because that middle component to build awareness, you're helping us do it right here. So I really appreciate the time.
No, we absolutely loved having you. Love what the Net Zero Accelerator is doing to give people that are creatives that may not have all of the resources necessary to build up their project, to build their dream and make it a reality. It's very important, the work that you are doing for these people. How can someone find the Net Zero Accelerator and apply to it and perhaps talk to you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the easy thing is I'll give you the website addresses. So it's USGBC-LA.com. So USGBC-LA.org, and then just Net Zero Accelerator.org. Both are .orgs because it's nonprofit. And if you just type in Net Zero Accelerator, you'll find us. You type in USGBC-LA, you'll find us. You type in Colin Mangham, you'll find me. So we're out there. We're making noise in the best of ways, but that would be the best way. And then if for people that want to potentially apply, or I mean, we were looking for advisors, certainly like myself, that will come in and guide these young companies. Not enough of me and Ben in the world of in our little microcosm here to guide all these companies as we'd like to. So we'd love to have advisors, maybe both of you. But also, if you're looking to apply, we have a Canadian cohort, and we have some other international cohorts we're potentially working on, which is great. But the annual accelerator runs from April through to our demo day in January. So we're in the middle of that one right now, or maybe on the tail end of it. But we'll be taking applications in December. And there's really two main things that someone would need to have. I mean, first of all, let's wrap it in the sustainability blanket, but mainly have a commercially viable product, something that's market ready, that you can get into market now. So not incubator, accelerator, you got something you can put into market. And then also just have some sort of high level of interest in Los Angeles, Southern California, and really all of California, because that's what we're increasingly doing is working with the whole state to make sure that these impacts are created.
Absolutely brilliant. And I loved when you said making noise. Keep making noise. Please be as loud as possible, because there's a lot of background noise out there and a lot of people chattering. You guys are actually doing it, making it happen, not just talking, but doing it. So be loud, be as loud as possible. And thank you again for your time today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you both.
And guys, I'm Wendy Nystrom, your host with Environmental Social Justice, with my friend Joy Langford, who was able to make it with all of her worldwide travels, saving the world one drop of water at a time. And Colin, thank you again. You guys check out the Net Zero Accelerator. It is a wonderful organization. Get that tech out there. Get heard, get seen. You guys take care.
Thank you.
Bye.